Order. First thing, I would just like to thank everybody for arriving. We're a few minutes late. The minister's here for an hour, but we'll go past 2 o'clock to make up the time we've lost. I want to welcome the minister back. As she pointed out, she was a member of this committee in the last parliament. Enjoyed working with her then. I should note that was one of the better sound checks. I have thoughts of music, monologue, and donuts on my mind now. Thank you to those of you who were unique today. So look, we're here today. I'm going to spare everybody the usual introduction about process because there isn't a single person here today who doesn't know it. And in the interest of time, I'll move on. But we are here today with Minister Ng as a result of the motion Mr. Zimmer had tabled some time ago. Just so we are reminded of that, it gives us some context for today's discussion. The motion read that the Honourable Mary Ng, Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion, International Trade, be invited to appear before the committee as part of the ongoing study on economic recovery in the forestry sector to provide critical information relating to the recent World Trade Organization ruling, as the government official appeared on October 30, 2020, was not able to respond to the question, and suggested that Global Affairs Canada appeared to answer the question at a future meeting. So that's just to contextualize our discussion today. So I will say welcome everybody again, and I will turn the floor over to you, Minister, and say thank you once again for taking your time to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for the opportunity to appear today and to provide you with an update on Canadian softwood lumber. It is really terrific to be back here at the Standing Committee on Natural Resources. As I said earlier during the sound check in 2018, I served on this committee as a member of Parliament and took part in a study on the forestry sector. It was clear to me then the importance of the forestry sector to our economy, for our workers, and for our environment, and that is just as true today. The forestry sector supports over 200,000 jobs in communities across the country, and in 2019 contributed $23.7 billion to our economy, or 1% of Canada's total GDP. Today, I would like to touch on a few things: the ongoing softwood lumber litigation with the United States, our efforts to create greater opportunities abroad for Canada's softwood lumber and wood product exporters, and the role that this industry is playing in our trade diversification strategy. Let me begin my appearance today by stating unequivocally that the duties imposed by the United States on Canadian softwood lumber are unwarranted and unfair, and it hurts workers and industry on both sides of the border. Earlier this week, in Canada's first meeting with President Biden, Prime Minister Trudeau, my ministerial colleagues, and our cabinet counterparts in the United States, I raised the issue of softwood lumber duties directly with the President. I will also be speaking with my American counterpart, the U.S. Trade Representative, directly about this in our first meeting once she's officially confirmed. The importance of this issue is front and center as we work with the new American administration in the months and years ahead. Canada continues to strongly believe that a negotiated agreement with the U.S. is in both countries' best interest. Le Canada est toujours convaincu qu'une
was convinced that a negotiated agreement with the United States is in the best interest of both countries.
Sitting idly by. We're taking a Team Canada approach, working hand in hand with the softwood lumber industry and provincial and territorial partners on all fronts. We have launched a series of challenges against the initial U.S. duties on softwood lumber through both the WTO and the new NAFTA. Throughout the multiple iterations of this dispute, we have consistently been awarded legal victories that clearly show our softwood industry is in full compliance with trade rules. While we will continue to pursue these legal avenues, considering our successful track record, we believe our U.S. counterparts will once again find that the most effective resolution to this dispute is a negotiated agreement. But I want all of you to know that our government's efforts go far beyond just the WTO to protect Canadian access to the U.S. softwood lumber market. In addition to U.S. softwood duties, the industry was facing other significant challenges. This includes fiber supply issues due to pine beetle damage and forest fires. When the pandemic struck, like many industries, the sector also saw a number of shutdowns. Supporting the industry across government is what we have been doing over this last year. Like many other industries, the forestry sector has had to cope with challenges and with restrictions. Yet through these challenges, it has demonstrated its resilience and its importance for workers, the economy, and indeed all Canadians. It has been vital to our supply chains, producing components for essential household products, including PPE, that Canadians have relied on throughout the pandemic, like medical gowns and non-medical masks. It is heartening to know that the Canadian softwood lumber industry has almost fully recovered from the early challenges of COVID-19. Nearly all of the 98 sawmills that closed last year as a result of the pandemic have restarted operations, restoring 96% of the more than 12,000 jobs affected. And just as it stood by Canadians, our government has always stood by the sector, from emergency support measures like the Business Credit Availability Program to the Softwood Lumber Action Plan, which is an investment of $867 million to support our softwood lumber industry in response to U.S. import duties. This program has strengthened our Canadian forest sector firms, helping grow innovative technologies, boost diversification, and supporting thousands of good jobs from coast to coast to coast. The swift action of this government have allowed the forest sector to better weather the challenges that they are facing today. Trade diversification is an important commitment. It's our government's commitment for the forestry industry that goes far beyond the emergency supports I just talked about. L'engagement de notre gouvernement.
Our government's commitment towards the forest industry, it doesn't limit itself to emergency assistance.
Export promotion and international trade. I'm determined to ensuring that our industry and businesses have the tools that they need to scale up and to grow across Canada and around the world. As we lay the groundwork for an inclusive and sustainable long-term recovery, strengthening trade ties and supporting diversification in forestry and all of our sectors will be key to generating clean growth and creating jobs. Canada is proud to be the only G7 country holding a trade agreement with all other G7 partners. Through these agreements and others around the world, our businesses have preferential access to 1.5 billion customers globally. Our trade diversification strategy maximizes opportunities for Canadian industry, created by strengthening existing trade agreements while pursuing new ones. The strategy has set a goal of increasing Canadian exports by 50% by 2025. For our industry partners, this means finding new and creative ways for them to forge new relationships and opportunities for growth. And through the trade diversification strategy, our government has invested $290 million over 5 years to help Canadian businesses export and grow in new markets by strengthening the Trade Commissioner service and enhancing the support that it provides to Canadian exporters, including those in the forestry sector. This isn't just about diversifying what we trade, but who we trade and with whom. Diversification and inclusive trade is creating opportunities for our world-class forestry sector to access those global markets while ensuring that all Canadians can benefit from its success. We understand the reality of the forestry-based businesses, which are actively diversifying production towards innovative products such as biofuels and sustainable packaging made from fiber. This is about strengthening traditional forestry-based products and investing in innovation.
Minister, I apologize for interrupting. In my haste, I forgot to mention one thing has changed since you were on the committee. Introductory remarks are supposed to be limited to 5 minutes. I apologize.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Well, that means half of my remarks are done in 5 minutes. They were 10 minutes. So
yeah, that was my mistake. I should have pointed that out at the beginning.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Zimmer.
This gives me the great opportunity to ask the minister, since she was cut off, and I understand that she didn't understand how much time that we had, if she'd be willing to stay for the entire 2 hours of committee today, to give her full time to give fulsome answers and her opening statement, full opening
Well, I'm not. I think that's a separate issue, Mr. Zimmer. But thank you for raising it. Are we prepared? I guess the question at hand is, in the circumstances, is there any objection to allowing the minister a few more minutes to finish her opening remarks?
Again, Chair, I'd be willing to, as long as that time, the time for questions is extended as well to match that. So everybody on committee gets
for 5 minutes. I can extend the time for questions for an extra 5 minutes if that's what you're saying.
Well, I was asking that she could stay for the whole 2 hours. That would certainly be the best.
The question, no, and I appreciate that, Mr. Zimmerman. The question I'm posing is with respect to the 5 minutes. So if you're objecting to the extension of time for the opening remarks, that's all I really need to know.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I can give the minister some of my time, my questioning to finish remarks if that's okay with the minister.
Yeah, Minister, carry on, and I apologize again. That was my oversight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'll pick up where I left off to say that we are committed to supporting Canadian businesses as they develop partnerships for commercial applications of their innovations, raise capital, and tap into the new global value chains for their products. Canada's ambitious and comprehensive trade policies is bringing Canadian industry to the world and bringing the world's investment to Canada. And we are working to increase international competitiveness of our natural resource industries, including forestry. Since 2015, the Trade Commissioner Service has facilitated numerous forest-related investment projects to Canada, including into Quebec, Ontario, Alberta, New Brunswick, and British Columbia. Companies are helping generate growth, create jobs, and are leaders in our goals for a more sustainable future. Les entreprises contribuent.
Enterprises contribute to growth, job creation. They are leaders in meeting our goals of sustainable futures for Canada.
Asia, which has invested hundreds of millions of dollars to modernize paper mills in British Columbia, in Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, employing 3,000 Canadians. Or Sonai Group from Portugal, which announced last year that they are investing $23 million to modernize their facility in Quebec, home of North America's largest particle board manufacturing facility. These investments are coming from around the globe, from Finland and Japan to Belgium and Indonesia. The entire world is investing in Canadian softwood lumber and its innovative byproducts. The investments we are attracting from around the world and the growth those investments are bringing with them are no surprise. Canada's forestry sector's reputation is world-renowned for its versatility, its innovation, and perhaps most notably in our current context for its leadership in sustainability. Canada's forestry sector is the most sustainable in the world. As I said earlier, and I think it bears repeating, the economy and the environment go hand in hand. Our government is committed to supporting our softwood lumber industry and protecting and promoting its reputation. I know our softwood lumber industry takes great pride in being a global leader in sustainable forest management and environmentally responsible forestry. Its commitment to sustainable development and environmental standards is going a long way to secure a more sustainable future for all Canadians. Working together, we will be able to reach our environmental target of net zero emissions by 2050. Our forestry sector knows what we all know. The time to take action to protect the environment is now. It is not just the right thing to do, it is the smart thing to do. A great example is the leadership here in British Columbia, and it's the tall wood building at UBC, the first mass wood, steel, and concrete hybrid project taller than 14 stories in the world. Or in Quebec, where their provincial government is the first in North America to support the construction of tall mass timber buildings.
In Quebec, the provincial government is the first in North America to support the construction of major buildings in wood.
Incredible economic and environmental benefits. This project alone was equivalent to taking 500 cars off the road. In conclusion, it is clear that we have so much to be proud of with our forestry sector and softwood lumber. Our industry shows leadership on so many fronts, from environmental stewardship to innovation to global trade, while supporting hardworking Canadians and economic growth. Through all of the challenges facing the industry, our government is committed to continuing our work, supporting this vital industry, and standing up for the interests of Canadian workers. We will continue to work closely with provinces, territories, industry, and other stakeholders to support and grow the Canadian forestry sector. Finally, allow me to reiterate here my personal commitment to use every opportunity to raise softwood lumber with my U.S. interlocutors and defend the interests of the Canadian forestry sector, forestry workers, and industry sports across the country. Thank you so much again for the invitation to appear today, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Minister, for your remarks. And again, my apologies. I also, in my haste to move things along quickly, I failed to acknowledge and thank the members of the department for attending today as well. So I'd like to express my thanks to them. Okay, so Mr. Zimmer, you now have the floor for 6 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to first of all ask the minister if she would be willing to stay for the entire 2 hours to answer our questions.
I thank the honourable member for that invitation. I am certainly very, very pleased to respond to questions in the time that we were scheduled to have me here. And I think
okay. I'll get right to my questions then. Thank you, Minister. It's been a long time coming since my initial questions in October of 2020 were unanswered regarding the softwood lumber agreement. In 2015, your government stated it was going to get a softwood lumber agreement signed within its first 100 days. We then saw the president, then Obama, attend our parliament, but no agreement. We have since seen record tariffs on our Canadian lumber producers of up to 20%, and over 20% actually. From an article in December of 2019, that inaction pre-COVID cost Canada over 140,000 jobs. Their logging, trucking, and mill jobs, including many of my own northern BC communities of Mackenzie, Prince George, Fort St. John, and many others, and $4 billion in revenue to BC alone. We saw that in August 2020, as you referred to, the WTO has unanimously ruled with Canada. Then the US appealed that decision in September of 2020. My question to the bureaucrats in October of 2020 was, can you update us on this important file? But now I'm going to be more specific, understanding that you recently had a bilateral meeting with the new Biden administration. Was a softwood lumber agreement or softwood tariffs on softwood lumber specifically brought up in the bilateral meeting between yourself, the Prime Minister, and President Biden, as there was no public mention of that, our forest sector at all, for that matter, that had been discussed publicly?
I want to thank the honourable member for that important question. And let me start by saying how important the forestry sector is, as you rightly pointed out, and whether it is sawmills or trucking or logging and all of the incredible businesses and the Canadians and the workers that this sector supports. So very, very important. And I want, I want the industry to know how important they are to our government.
Minister, the question is about whether the softwood lumber agreement was discussed in the bilateral meeting. My time is very short. That's why I just need you to answer the question. Thank you.
I raised softwood lumber.
Okay, did you talk about the softwood lumber?
Le micro de Monsieur.
Unfortunately, Mr. Zimmer's microphone doesn't work quite well, so there is no interpretation right now.
Okay, we went through checks on this. Is it good now? I just put it a little bit closer. Is that better?
The interpretation working, Mr. Smart? Do you have your setting? What do you have your setting on, Bob?
It's on that. We checked it before. I can hear that it's on.
C'est pas le problème.
No, I don't think it's the issue. I'm in French. The interpreter cannot follow.
Any difficulty? It's the translation apparently is the challenge.
Yeah, and I'm set on English as well, so I don't know.
That's where. Okay, we're getting the thumbs up now. Okay, so carry on. I won't
hold on to my time.
Yeah.
So you, Minister, you talked about softwood lumber, but did you specifically talk about a softwood lumber agreement and that being renewed?
Let me assure the honourable member that Canada firmly believes that a negotiated settlement to this dispute is in the best interest of of Canadians and the Americans, and we know that the duties are hurting both businesses on the Canadian side, but as well as in the U.S. I'm looking forward to speaking to the new U.S. trade representative.
Was the softwood lumber agreement specifically discussed in that bilateral meeting?
I'm looking forward to speaking with the new U.S. Trade Representative, upon her confirmation, this will be an item that is of priority for me to raise. There are synergies between our two countries, as all have seen in the roadmap, for a renewed U.S.-Canada partnership.
That sounds great that you're working in this direction, because frankly, we haven't seen much support for the forest sector from this government. Again, we saw the promises of a softwood lumber agreement within the first 100 days. Again, crickets since then, and we hear just more talk. No specific commitments from you to getting a softwood lumber agreement across the table and getting it signed by both countries. I've heard no commitment in what you just said. I guess my other concern is the billions. There are over $4 billion in softwood duties that are being held currently. This is money that's really been held from Canadian producers. I'm going to ask another question. Has this money been discussed about when this money will be returned to Canadian producers?
As I said to the honourable member, I intend to work with my U.S. counterpart to find a solution to this issue, and I am hopeful that we can reach a mutually accepted outcome. I would point out in response to his question that the Canadian government has provided tremendous support to the sector. It is incredibly important. Helping the sector innovate, diversify, and find access to markets so that we can create terrific jobs across the country is something that we are absolutely doing hand in hand with working with the Americans on what we
Minister,
think a negotiation settlement would be.
Let me just
in the best interest.
My time is probably done after my comments. Is it again a lot of that is it's a great word salad. It sounds great that you're working with our counterparts to the south. It's all talk, and it's until we see actual commitments to renewing that particular agreement. When we were in government,
thank you, Mr. Zimmer. That's all. That's all your time. I appreciate it.
We saw the agreement renewed.
Mr. Zimmer, thank you. Your time is up. All right, Mr. Weiler, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come join your former committee here, the Natural Resource Committee, today. To discuss an issue that's of critical importance to Canada's economy, but as we just talked about, for BC's economy. And as you mentioned, the U.S. has regrettably continued down a path of punitive and unfair tariffs on this critical export. And Canadians are frustrated that our neighbors are continuing down this path. And in spite of the sound case I know you're making, that our government's been making for some time about the mutual economic cost in going down this path, we're forced to challenge these rulings in different fora to get the relief that we're entitled to, where we've been successful just about every step of the way. With this in mind, I was just hoping you could outline at a very high level, what are the next steps legally that we can take to get such relief from these tariffs if we're not able to come to a negotiated solution?
Thank you so much to my honourable member for that important question. All the way along, our government has been absolutely steadfast at standing up for the softwood lumber industry. It is a positive result that we have seen, where Canada has consistently, it's been reaffirmed that Canada is trade compliant. We will need to continue to vigorously defend the industry, but at the same time, we also want to create the right conditions to support and to invest and to attract investment to this important sector, and many of the new small and medium-sized businesses that absolutely are being created. So through the Trade Commissioner Service, working with businesses, certainly in British Columbia, but across the country, where they're finding markets to export into. We are finding some real promising opportunities in countries where where we already have trade agreements, like in Japan or in Vietnam through the CPTPP, through Germany, through CETA, as well as South Korea, where we have a bilateral agreement with that country for our extraordinary wood products, for our innovative forestry products. So we're going to continue doing that work, investing in our Canadian businesses so that we can help diversify and help them grow anchored with jobs in Canada, so that we can have that continued vibrant forestry sector while at the same time defending them through the other channels, whether it be through the dispute settlement mechanisms or through at the WTO.
Well, thank you for that. And maybe I'll pick up on your comments there. And you mentioned in your earlier testimony that our government's invested $290 million into the Trade Commissioner Service. And, personally, I've had the pleasure of working with and receiving excellent help from the Vancouver office in my prior professional capacity before becoming an MP. So I want to give a specific shout out to Mylan Savord and Warren Senkowski, who help in the mining and forestry sector, respectively. But it's important that all sectors are able to take advantage of Canada's trade agreements to scale up and export to new markets. And it's important for them to know of this great service that we offer. So, Minister, I was hoping you could explain how the Trade Commissioner Service assists our forest sector businesses in their efforts to export to new markets.
Absolutely. Happy to. They are Canada's best business development and sales force all around the world, operating in 1,100 offices all around. But for this sector in particular, let me just share with you some of the activities that they've already pursued in an effort to open up markets for Canadian businesses in the forestry sector. We have had to pivot, just like many businesses have and industries have, and have gone virtual. We have the Trade Commissioner Service has taken businesses to Spain, helping wood building and attending the wood building and bioeconomy webinar, showcasing Canadian low carbon, energy friendly wood building solutions and bioproduct development. We've also gone virtually into Brazil, attending the International Workshop for Bioeconomy. And this is helping some of the most advanced and promising bioproducts and bioprocessing technologies for commercialization and deployment into Brazil and in South America of Canadian innovations, Canadian forestry and wood product innovations. And we are going to also go to Japan in March of this year to promote the use of wood building systems in hotel constructions in that country. That is just but a few things. And if I had more time, I would keep talking about the terrific work that our Team Trade Canada is helping Canadian businesses start up, scale up, and access those new markets.
No, that's really great to hear, and I'm curious about that. What does a virtual trade mission look like in this day and age, and how can the forestry sector be able to participate in that to help expand their market?
Well, we're absolutely reaching out. The Trade Commissioner Service, through its SME program, through its innovation program, through its core programs, reach out to the sector, has a very close working relationship. And if I speak about just two of the virtual trade missions that I led myself as the minister, where you typically have about 35 companies going with the minister physically to the Trade Commission, to the virtual trade mission to South Korea, we had over 200 companies, to the 3-day business summit to the European Union celebrating the 3rd year anniversary of CETA, we had over 1,100 businesses. So really looking at how we can continue to do business and support Canadian businesses looking to grow and export is what we are committed to do, what this government is committed to. And I want to thank the Trade Commissioner Service for all of their terrific work.
Perfect. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Weiler. Mr. Simard, over to you, sir, for 6 minutes.
Oui, merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madam Minister, for your presentation. I can tell you, frankly, I feel that when it's time to negotiate on trade agreements, software is often neglected. And I'm going to explain why I have this feeling. Not so long ago, during Christmas, Canada's chief negotiator came before our committee and told us, I asked him why the issue of software hadn't been looked into, and he said it wasn't a priority at that point. So that's what Canada's chief negotiator said. And not so long ago, the parliamentary secretary of the government, during the study of Bill C-18, told me personally that when there are trade agreements, compromises have to be made when I raised the softwood lumber issue. So I conclude that the compromise that's often made when Canada is negotiating trade agreements are mostly around softwood. And I have the feeling that you haven't really gone to bat to make sure that this sector of economic activity is respected by our American neighbors. I would like to hear what you have to say on that.
Thank you. Thank you to the honorable member for that question. And I know how important this industry is to Quebec, and how important it is to the families, the workers, and the many sawmills and businesses that this industry supports. So I want to be clear about our commitment to those workers and to this sector, and of how important they are. So I want to be on the record to indicate that absolute priority. We absolutely agree that the best way forward would be a negotiated settlement with the Americans. I'm looking forward to working with the new administration on this. It will be an issue that I will absolutely raise in my very first meeting with the new U.S. trade representative after she is confirmed. There are the dispute really is hurting industries on both sides of the border. We have common interests around around helping our workers and this sector recover coming out of COVID-19. If you take a look at the construction sector as one, and the need for affordable housing in both countries, I mean, this is really, really important. So I want to assure the honourable member that we will work very hard on this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I would agree that you are expressing pious wishes, but that's not what I want. I'm talking about concrete actions. You can come up with these concrete actions, what the industry wants. You know, in 2006, there was a situation that was unacceptable. $1 billion in the agreement signed with the United States was left on the table, and that $1 billion was paid by Quebec forest industries. So what the forestry sector is asking you for is a better program to access liquidity. The program that's currently in place, they basically have to be in technical bankruptcy. All representatives of the forestry industry I met told me that this program is obsolete. So without getting into negotiations with the United States, you can implement certain actions right now. And I'm wondering why you don't do so. This is a legitimate claim by the forestry sector to have a system that facilitates access to funding, to liquidity. Why don't you do so?
Thank you for that question. During the pandemic, we know that the forestry sector has been hit just like others, and the broad-based programs that have been available, certainly liquidity programs in the business credit availability program is available to the sector. The wage subsidy program, which is saving hundreds of thousands of jobs, well, millions of jobs across the country, and certainly including the forestry sector, is there and available. But I would also point out that this government is absolutely supporting the forestry sector in Quebec. This year alone, almost $13 million for the Forest Innovation Program, almost $1 million for the Strategic Partnership Initiative, more than $2.3 million through the Expanded Market Opportunities. We are supporting the Quebec sector, and we continue to support Quebec's workers. Very, very important. And as I said earlier, my commitment to raise this with the U.S. interlocutors will be done once my counterpart is confirmed. I'm looking forward to that conversation.
30 seconds, Mr. Smart.
Yes, quickly, you spoke about construction of this wood building in order to develop that. There are simple measures. Several people came before us as witnesses, and they came up with a list of those. So the government could quite easily, in a public tendering process, you could put the carbon footprint as a criteria, and so that would quickly promote wood building. Would you agree that such a measure is necessary?
I think that the sector and the forestry sector is an absolute leader, and their contribution to building more sustainably is, I think, what the opportunity is. In addition to the range of forest-related products that are innovative, that is really going to help us tackle both the environment and the growth of the economy.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Simard. Mr. Cannings, over to you, sir.
Well, thank you, Minister Ng, for coming back to Natural Resources Committee. It's like old times. Good to see you here. You know, as you mentioned, the forestry industry is so important. It's important in my riding. It's important in my province in British Columbia, and of course across the country. And the softwood lumber dispute has been going on, I wouldn't say all my life, but for a long, long time. In 2017, I went down to Washington, D.C. with Tracy Ramsey, who at the time was the NDP's critic for international trade, and we met with a lot of senators and congressional representatives about this. And what struck me was, first of all, some of the strongest strident voices of protectionism down there came from Democrats. So I'm wondering what difference, if any, this new administration can bring. But I also heard from representatives who were concerned about the softwood lumber dispute because it was hurting their industries, as you mentioned. Right now, we have lumber prices north of $1,000 per 1,000 board feet. And that's hurting not just Canadians. I have a friend who's building a house and the price just went up dramatically. But it's hurting American businesses, retail businesses, wholesalers, and consumers. John Fouke, who's the chair of the U.S. National Association of Home Builders, said that these prices are just unsustainable, and he's really pressing the administration down there to get this solved. So I'm just wondering, my first question, I guess, would be what pressure you're putting forward using, those people that are with us down in the United States to press the administration to solve this.
Thank you so much, and it's terrific to be here with you. It does sort of feel like old times around the committee, although I'm looking forward to the day when we can see each other in person again. What I would say is that I think that there is an opportunity. I fully intend to raise it. I think that the issue that you have rightly pointed out, which is an area of common interest, which is in economic recovery, the workers who depend on those jobs, and the affordability of construction, and the Biden administration, just as we do, have an ambitious agenda around providing affordable housing. I mean, to its people, and the cost of lumber and the cost of construction. I think that there is a mutual interest here for us to work together. It is good for workers. It is good for businesses, and I'm very heartened to work with the U.S. administration, who've indicated their preference to working with allies to resolve disputes, and our roadmap for a renewed U.S.-Canada partnership, I think, is a perfect signal of that. So I absolutely intend to work with my U.S. counterpart to find the solution to this issue, and I hope that we will be able to reach a mutually acceptable outcome for both our countries.
And I also, as I said, it's been going on for so long, and what I've been hearing from the industry and from everyone is, why can't we settle this once and for all? Not just, Monsieur Simard mentioned the $1 billion that was left on the table, not just getting these illegal tariffs returned to us, but language in an agreement that will stop this from happening again, these frivolous, vexatious tariffs, language that says what Canada is doing in the forest industry is correct and okay. maybe even penalties for frivolous suits and actions against Canadian forest industry. Is there an appetite for that? Because that's what we are really looking forward here to get this done. I would really like an agreement that would be the last agreement that we need.
Well, for sure, Canada's position is that a new softwood lumber agreement is really in the best interest of both countries. And in this area, in this arena, I really am looking forward to working in a Team Canada approach with the industry and with the workers here in Canada. And I do think that there are synergies that really is there, that is in the interest of Americans as it is in the interest of Canadians. So my commitment absolutely is to raise this at this first opportunity, and indeed to work very hard on this file.
And quickly, I hope I have time for one last question in this round, and that is, you mentioned mass timber, engineered wood, which two companies in my riding have really pioneered, not just in Canada, but in North America, and that's Structure Lamb and Kolesnikov. And that product is shipped into the United States tariff-free because it doesn't meet the requirements for the softwood lumber tariffs, thank goodness. And I'm just hoping that will remain that way, because these companies can provide really good value-added work in Canada. But they're suffering too now because of the high prices of 2x4s, 2x6s that they use to create that. So they're hoping for these prices to come down and a new agreement to be in place.
Well, I would agree that Structure Lamb is one, and I remiss at the other one, but they're terrific companies, and those are the exact examples of companies that are innovating and in the sector and creating the kind of new and different value add products. And indeed, it's those very products that also will help us achieve another objective that both administrations, our government and the American administration, is very, very keen to work very aggressively on, and that is climate change. So very much looking forward to helping our Canadian businesses, and on Structure Lamb. I mean, not only are they going
thank
into
you,
North
Minister.
America.
I apologize again, but you'll recall from your time on the committee that it is my job to do that from time to time, as unpleasant as it may be. So I apologize, but
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mechanics. Mr. McLean, over to you, sir. We're into a 5-minute round now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Minister, welcome to the committee, and it's a pleasure to have you here. And I really appreciate all your comments when you're talking about, delivered with all earnestness about how we're going to pay attention to our trade relationship going forward. But we watched in dismay while we had a release this week that said all the important matters that were raised with the U.S. administration this week regarding how we're going to work hand in hand with the new administration in the U.S. But we also had a CUSMA negotiation happened not so long ago. And this industry, again, was left out of that whole negotiation. So as my colleague, Mr. Canning, was saying, at what point in time are we actually going to come to a real agreement here? And this government's actually going to put forward the steps required to come to a solid agreement that's going to last with the United States in this industry.
Thank you so much, Mr. McLean. It's wonderful to see you and to be here at committee. We absolutely believe that a negotiated settlement to this dispute is for sure in the best interest of both Canada and the U.S. And just as we pursued the negotiations in the new CUSMA or new NAFTA, it is taking a Team Canada approach, working with industry, working with workers, and making sure that we are advocating and working together with the Americans, in areas where it is good for them and it is also good for us. And I think I've already sort of shared the examples of where that will be. And I'm heartened to know that the the new U.S. administration wants to work with its allies in resolving issues, and I'm very much looking forward to raising this at the first conversation that I have with my new U.S. counterpart.
Okay, well, thank you, Minister. And I hope we can get to some timelines here when that actually will happen, because it seems to continue to get pushed forward. But I'm going to ask, further on some questions here about the biomass we have. It's the largest biomass per capita in Canada. And I'm wondering if you believe this biomass can be used as a carbon sink in our negotiations with other countries when we come to environmental considerations.
I think the biomass that we have in our country, I mean, is a testament to the industry, the manner in which it is innovating, the way in which we are finding new environmentally sound and good products that will make it into value chains and production that will help with Canada's climate goals, but as well as that of our friends south of the border, but indeed in many of the export markets to which there is an opportunity.
Okay.
And
well,
we will
Minister.
work with those
that,
businesses,
yeah.
and
well,
we will work with those businesses.
So the
grow.
Government's committed to actually planting 2 billion trees over the next handful of years, increasing the Canadian wood stock by about 0.5%. as a carbon sink. How do you think this will be viewed as by our trade partners as a potential trade subsidy if we're going to actually spend, as the Parliament Budget Officer says, around $3 a tree, $6 billion to actually accomplish a 0.5% increase?
Well, it's a really important question, and I think that this is something that we are always sensitive to. I mean, Canada is a country that is trade compliant. Canada is also a country that is committed to supporting our businesses, and certainly here in a really important sector like the forestry sector and the wraparound and the range of products that are emerging, and certainly the products that are contributing to climate action here, but literally around the world, is what we are doing to support the innovation and the new products that are coming online. So it is a balance that we've always been sensitive to, and to be trade compliant.
Thank you, Minister. One final question. I think I probably got a little extra time here for a final question. How are we going to have our industry compete with the United States forest industry when we have a carbon tax increasing in Canada versus no carbon tax in our main trading partner in the United States?
I think our commitment to climate action in Canada is what makes us competitive. The forestry industry it should be applauded for its leadership in sustainability. Absolutely, the environment and the economy can go hand in hand. The way in which the new emerging opportunities that we are supporting in that development, in that growth, is going to stand Canada's industry steadfast, precisely because we have a plan on tackling climate change.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. McLean. Unfortunately, that is all your time. Mr. Sidhu, you are up next for 5 minutes.
Pardon, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, I thought Mr. Sidhu had considered his turn to allow the minister to finish her statement.
Mr. Chair, I did say that at the beginning.
You did say that. That's right. Yeah. Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Simard. Okay. Well, if you want to, if you gave up 5 minutes, then Mr. Simard.
I gave up 4 minutes, but I'd love to have my 1 minute with the minister.
I'll give you 1 minute. Yeah.
Perfect. No, well, thank you, Minister.
Make it a good question.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Minister, for being here with us today. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank the whole department for the hard work you're doing. I know you've been working hard through our trade agreements, and we're working hard to support the forestry sector because it's an extremely important sector here in Canada. As you mentioned, it's $23 billion of our GDP. Minister, how are we helping the forestry sector tap into the 1.5 billion customers globally through our trade agreements? If you want to quickly let's provide some insights on that.
Well, I already talked about the Trade Commissioner Service, so I won't go there. But Can Export is a terrific program. It's a program that actually helps our Canadian companies get the support that they need to grow into international markets. So helping those companies, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, which are so many of these businesses that are being created, that are innovative, that are developing new products, new bio products that take a look at PPE during this pandemic and how important this sector has been in providing for those products. So helping those businesses grow and get access into those international markets, customers, 1.5 billion customers in the international markets is what we are absolutely committed to doing. And in fact, not only committed, we've taken action on it. And we are seeing businesses growing. We're seeing businesses grow in places like Taiwan, in Japan, in the Philippines, in Australia, in Italy, and seeing investment come in from Belgium and from.
Thank you, Minister. In fairness to Mr. Simard, he's right. We have to honor the commitment.
Yeah.
Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Simard. And I apologize again for interrupting. Which means the floor is yours, Mr. Simard, for 2.5 minutes.
Merci.
Thank you, Chair. I would simply like Minister to provide an example which clearly shows the problem with trade agreements. You know, an enterprise that is doing primary wood processing cannot have access to debt Canada problems. If you're doing a initial transformation, they concluded that it's not in agreement with some of these arrangements, and they have to apply to global affairs, and they're always rejected. Some that are doing processing at the second and even third level also don't receive subsidies. So I'm not sure if you're aware of that situation for regional economies in several regions in Quebec. There is a catastrophic impact on the forestry sector. So would you be ready to discuss the issue to come up with a solution?
Thank you for that important question. As an example, we provided $4.5 million of investments in Sherbrooke to develop new products in the bioenergy from our forests. We have announced more than $600,000 in Abitibi to promote further economic opportunity for Indigenous communities in the forest sector in Quebec. I work as the minister responsible for, for Crown Corporation and agencies who are there to support the growth of Canadian companies through capital, whether it's through the Business Development Bank or Export Development Canada. We put a team trade approach for our businesses, for our Canadian businesses, and I see that helping wood pellet manufacturers in Quebec to distribute and to grow into Italy. I mean, these are a variety of supports, but my commitment to put Team Canada trade to our businesses to grow and create jobs in Canada and certainly in Quebec is absolutely my top priority. In fact, it's a mandate given to me by the Prime Minister.
Yes, I understand, Minister, but I'll give you another example quickly. There is a program, the Business Development Program. Okay, maybe I could come back to that.
Okay, thank you. I'll just start off by again reiterating the importance, the damage that these the high tariffs and the resulting high prices in North America, because there's such demand, are doing to not just businesses here in North America, but it's also stimulating imports from Europe, from Romania, Germany, Scandinavia, that are now finding that their products are cheaper. So that they can bring them to North America. I have a company in Penticton that builds pine shelving. When it's servicing the eastern part of its market in North America, it imports from Romania. So this is something that we have to deal with very quickly. And just my question would be on the lines of when a deal is signed, let's hope, will there be a mechanism to bring not just the tariffs back to Canada, but some way to help those small companies, not just the big companies that had to actually pay the tariffs, but the small companies that work for them that have been really suffering over the years off and on as things go up and down. to help those companies that really, they're the ones that have been hit hardest. They're the ones, a lot of them have gone out of business or have suffered. So is there a mechanism to help them?
Thank you so much for that question. As the minister responsible also for small business, it is an absolute commitment and a priority of mine to ensure the viability of Canada's small businesses in all sectors, and particularly here in the forestry sector, to make sure, certainly during COVID-19, to ensure that they have the supports that they need. But the opportunity that belies us is an opportunity to help those businesses also grow and anchor that growth in Canada, creating really good jobs in Canada and access those international markets. So yes, a commitment to work with the United States so that we can, pursue a negotiated settlement, defend the interest of Canadian softwood lumber with vigor, and certainly to help with that diversification and the supporting the growth of this incredible Canadian technology and capability, environmentally sustainable capability for these Canadian small businesses, so that and I think it's all of those things that will ensure a competitive and vibrant sector, and that can only be good for Canadian workers.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. Cannings.
Thank you.
Okay, back to Mr. Patzer. I believe you're next for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister, for coming here today. Really appreciate it. Before we get going into the softwood issue, I have another quick question for you. And we'd heard from witnesses at our last meeting about another emerging problem. And they said the environmental assessment can take at least 3 and up to 10 years for new mineral projects. Under the CUSMA deal, we only have a 3-year grace period before there's a requirement to regionally source 75% of lithium for our batteries. So at this rate, with your government's plan for electric vehicles, how will Canada not get hit with more tariffs for another developing industry?
Well, I want to thank the honourable member for that very important question, and you've touched on something that is really important, and in fact a key cornerstone of the renewed U.S.-Canada partnership, particularly around the environment and the importance of working on critical supply chains. Minerals being one of them, and certainly those minerals go into the products that are needed for the development of products that will power our new green industries. So this is absolutely a commitment, and I think you'll see that in the new roadmap for the new renewed roadmap between Canada and the United States. This is certainly an area where there is a real opportunity for the two countries to in building back better, if you will, to work together, because there are opportunities for growth, in economic growth and environmental leadership in growth in those sectors.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you doing then within the government to make sure that we don't get hit with these tariffs at that 3-year mark, because the environmental approval process takes up to 3 years? So we're basically hooped. So what are you doing to make sure that doesn't happen, that Canada isn't punished by more tariffs from our key trading partners?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Weller.
As much as it would be very interesting to talk about critical minerals or other study, we're here today to talk about the forestry sector, and specifically the softwood lumber agreements. So I was hoping we could stick to that today.
Thanks, Mr. Weller. Mr. Patzer, I think that's a fair comment, considering the minister's only here for you and one more person, and given Mr. Zimmer's concern, which he expressed earlier, that we need to ask her questions. I would hate to see us talking about something that's outside the scope of the reason she's here. So
yeah, no, for sure. We just got an emerging issue. I was hoping to just pick her brain on that here quickly while we have her here. But so I appreciate the comments. So, Minister, yesterday your counterpart, the incoming U.S. trade rep, said we often fall into a pattern where one sector of our economy and one segment of our workers feel like their livelihoods and their opportunities are sacrificed for another part of our economy. She said trade policy should break this pattern. In similar terms, many Canadians would say your government's trade policy is sacrificing certain sectors of our economy, including softwood, along with all the rest of Canada's natural resources. So as Trade Minister, how will you break this pattern?
Thank you so much for that question. Let me just be clear about how important the forestry sector is to Canada's economy and to my work. And as I said earlier, I certainly intend to be speaking to the new USTR once she is confirmed. But I think that there is an area where we certainly both would agree, and that is Canada's trade relationships and agreements, and certainly with with the United States, has a really strong provision around inclusive trade and ensuring that all people in our economy benefit from the benefits of our agreement. And that is an area that I intend to pursue as well, coming out of the meeting with the president earlier this week. The renewed U.S.-Canada relationship includes the opportunity to implement and to work on CUSMA, and particularly on on benefits for small and medium-sized businesses. So I think that there certainly are many areas to which both of our countries can work on to ensure that we get on that road for economic growth, economic recovery that will enable more job creation for people on both sides of the border.
Okay, and then quickly here, the Senate hearing for the new U.S. trade rep made it very clear that Canada is on their radar in a few different areas, including softwood. So what trade issues with the U.S. are specifically on your radar?
We are I'm looking forward to my first meeting with the U.S. Trade Representative. The meeting that we had with President Biden and Prime Minister earlier this week laid out a very robust roadmap for many areas of collaboration. Critical supply chains is something that we are going to steadfastly work on. Solving for COVID-19 and beating COVID-19 is an area that we steadfastly must work on. And the reason that's connected to trade is because solving COVID-19 is directly connected to the health of our economic recovery. So there are many areas that we can work together, and I intend to, and I'm looking forward to that working relationship, and certainly my first conversation, which I will raise softwood lumber.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. Patzer. Okay, so Mr. Lefebvre, you are next, and then the Minister will have to be on her way following your questions.
So how much time? 5 minutes?
5 minutes, yeah.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Minister, for being here. I'm really happy that you're able to join us. I'm, even though I'm the MP for Sudbury, which is mining, obviously, I'm from Kapuskasing, which is a pulp and paper town. My dad was a welder there, and certainly I am a bit like Mr. Canning's. I grew up and actually with this trade disputes with the U.S. being certainly something that affected us very often. And certainly it's a challenging file, and certainly, as we all know, we need another partner on the other side to sit down with. And when they're not there, it's hard to negotiate with an absent partner. And I know that's what happened in the last 4 years, which has been clear. And I know we were really willing and able to engage. When there's no partner to engage with, it's quite impossible. But I really want to congratulate you, and I want to thank you on your trade diversification strategy. And when we understand that because of the challenges, certainly with the one major trading partner, we need to diversify. That's something I've been hearing for a long, long time. So the measures that you put in place, and certainly the team you put in place, is certainly, I think it's very promising, and I think there's a really good things that will come for that for all of Canada. So maybe I just want you to maybe touch upon your views of the importance of this trade diversification strategy and the significant amount of funding and certainly of supports that you have put in, and why you believe that this will really give us the results that we're looking for.
Well, thank you so much for that important question. This sector is really important to so many communities, coast to coast to coast across Canada, including Kapuskasing and in Northern Ontario, and we know that this sector is also an incredible leader in responsible forest management, in sustainable products coming out of coming out of this sector, and Canadian businesses, particular small and medium-sized businesses, to which there are many in this sector, especially those that are emerging, they make up like 99% of all businesses in Canada, and today 12% of those businesses are exporting. So the opportunity to not only export more, but to grow more, and to grow more into those markets that we have access to. Canada is very enviable, being the only G7 country with a free trade agreement with the other seven countries. Also, having access to the 1.5 billion customers around the globe. But what we need to do is just help our businesses and make the investments in them in this growth. So whether it's getting access to capital or access to the supports and market research into where they may grow is what Team Trade Canada is doing. So whether it is the Trade Commissioner Service and the investments of $290 million, whether it is Can Export, which we have pivoted, by the way, as well during the course of COVID-19 to make sure that businesses who need access to those that support to help them grow. And this is now attending virtual trade shows. It's actually dealing with some of the the barriers that might have come up as a result of exporting in this COVID environment, and helping them deal with those kinds of costs. But for the innovative forestry sector, the IP that they are developing, paying for their IP and their patents. So a range of supports to help our businesses grow into those international markets.
And you mentioned another very important aspect of the investment that you made with respect to the trade commissioners and basically the growing of that. And I've seen it firsthand, certainly maybe from a mining perspective, being at PDAC, being at a lot of Roundup in Vancouver, the importance of those individuals around the world that really helps Canadian businesses. Maybe if you can touch upon the importance of those trade commissioners, that'd be important.
Well, you know what? I think what I can do is actually do even better. I can share some examples. Here's a great New Brunswick company who is commercializing its wood biocomposite solutions and in packaging. So it's substituting it's substituting plastic. So, kind of really, sustainable packaging using e-commerce platforms, and Trade Commissioner Service helping them get into the US and the European market. Another manufacturer of wood source polymer from Alberta is benefiting from the Trade Commissioner Service because they're helping them look for commercial partners in the European company so that they can integrate some of those materials into car part interior finishing in manufacturing. BC companies that are specializing in wood construction, like the ones in Richards Riding, they're innovating, and the TCS is helping them get into markets not only in North America, but in Taiwan, in Japan, in the Philippines, in Australia. Wood pellet manufacturers in Quebec, helping them expand their distribution into Italy, and this is only a handful of opportunities. We know that in markets in Japan, in Vietnam, in Germany, in South Korea, in Indonesia, like these are investments that are coming into Canada, but they're also opportunities for growth for exactly those companies that are going to create jobs anchored in Canada, and that's going to help grow middle-class jobs. And this is the road to recovery, but it's actually long-term growth in this very, very important sector for
Thank you so much.
Economy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lefebvre. Minister, thank you very much. We're going to let you go now, but I just want to say on behalf of the committee, thank you for coming out today, and thank you for indulging us with 15 more minutes than was scheduled. We appreciate it, and good to have you back here. Hopefully we'll see you back here another time.
It's a pleasure, and it's terrific to be back at the committee. It just feels like old times, and happy weekend to everyone. All the very best, and I'll see you next week.
Okay, great.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, who was that? I wasn't looking at my screen.
Mr. Lloyd.
Mr. Lloyd, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, point of order, Mr. Chair. I did want to wait until the minister was gone to address this issue out of respect for the minister's time. Mm-hmm. But I am a bit concerned about, a decorum issue in relation to Mr. Weiler's intervention and interruption of Mr. Patzer's line of questioning. Now, I have been consulting O'Brien and Bosk on committee procedures on this matter, and it says that it is the sole prerogative of the chair to interrupt members if they feel that their observations or their questions are off topic. And I think, Mr. Chair, I would just encourage you to state to the committee that it is not the job of other members to use points of order, which I would say an inappropriate use of the point of order, which the purpose of a point of order is to raise an issue of a violation of a standing order of a committee or not usual practice of the committee. But it is the practice of a committee that if somebody is asking a question that's off topic or making an observation, that it is the sole prerogative of the chair. And I would not want to see any member of this committee usurping the role of the chair in making this decision. I think you can imagine a situation where any member of this committee could raise repetitive points of order about members maybe taking things off topic. And I think, in the House of Commons, the Speaker has granted a great deal of leeway in speeches on topics to get back to the point. So I would just encourage you, Mr. Chair, to not allow your position to be usurped by members who might seek, maybe in this case it was an honest intervention, but it is your role, Mr. Chair, not the role of members to interrupt our fellow members when they have very limited time to ask questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lloyd, thank you for that intervention. Had you gone on longer, I suspect you would have met the definition of a monologue, so I'm glad you stopped when you did. Look, if it makes you feel any better, if Mr. Weiler hadn't have said it, I was about to. I think in the context of a meeting, relevance is always important, but when a witness is appearing before the committee pursuant to the specific wording of a motion brought by one of your colleagues, I may remind you, I think the context becomes even more important. But thank you. And I will agree with you this much. I would hate to think anybody on this committee would try to usurp the functions of the chair. So we all appreciate that reminder, I think. I see Mr. McLean, you have your hand up. Is this on the same issue? I won't call it a point of order.
Yes, it is, Mr. Chair. And much as I appreciate your comments, I think I'd like to acknowledge that Mr. Lloyd's point is well taken, and you'll enforce that better next time, because the ability of other members to step in and usurp your role, I think, needs to be clearly defined as a non-starter. Secondly, I also notice that if you're going to cut off the members when they're asking questions off topic, I'd like you to also cut off the witnesses when they're equally off topic.
Look, I'll say that we're on the record, and I'll say this. I think my practice is I try not to, if we hit the time on the button, I try not to interrupt a witness if they appear to be close to finishing an answer. I did it when you were asked your last question. I try to do that with everybody, regardless of who's asking the questions. Sometimes it doesn't work out as precisely as I would like it to. I plan to continue that practice unless the will of the committee is that I stop people no matter what right on the button. But I think if you were to check the blues for this meeting and other meetings, that it would reflect that I'm pretty fair with everybody's time, regardless of which party they are with. So, but again, I thank you. And sometimes it blows up in my face. I will admit it when I let them go on, and I regret it. But that's my burden to bear. Mr. May, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to seek some guidance maybe from the clerk, because if we're suggesting that members of parliament do not have the right to call a point of order on relevance, I think that's, first of all, I think that's a misinterpretation of the rules. And I think just for future, I think, yes, the clerk or the chair should be jumping in, but if the chair isn't jumping in, MPs should have the right to call on relevance on an issue.
Mr. May, again, I thank you for the comments. Look, I'm not a fan of frequent and repetitive points of order. Relevance is always a guiding principle at this committee and everywhere that we're carrying on our business. I don't intend to let anybody in this committee usurp my decision making, but if people want to raise a point of order, they're within their rights to do, and then it's up to me to rule on whether it's appropriate or not. So I don't know that we need a ruling. And I see Mr. Canning's hand is up, and I'm going to let him speak, of course, but I would like to move on to questions, because we do have witnesses who are sitting here patiently watching this, and as much as they may be enjoying it, I'm sure they'd rather have questions from us. Mr. Cannings? You're on mute, Mr. Cannings.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, when we have the minister before us to question about the estimates, most of the questions that are put to the minister at that time have very little to do with the estimates. It's basically, you can ask the minister anything, and that's what we do. And so I'm just siding with Mr. Patzer here that I think it was fair game, as much as I thought the minister did face a lot of questions about forestry. So I just wanted to point that practice out. It's probably not in Boston, but I think it should be considered.
Reminds me of that scene in A Few Good Men. Everything's not in the book, but people follow certain practices. So, okay, so let's move on now. I think I don't see any more hands, so let's move on to carry on the discussion with our witnesses. Mr. Lloyd, appropriately, I believe it is your turn. You have the floor for 5 minutes to ask questions of our remaining witnesses. So over to you.
Thank you. You know, I'm not sure exactly which witness would be best suited, but one of the questions that I had is there any line of sight on, you know, we have a new U.S. administration. We know the previous administration was refusing to fill key WTO roles, which was really gumming up the works for the appeals process on softwood lumber. Is there any line of sight on where the new U.S. administration is going in terms of filling these vacancies?
Thank you, Honourable Member, for the question. It's a very good question. My name is Arun Alexander. Just to introduce myself, I'm the Director General for North American Trade Policy. As you stated correctly, the previous U.S. administration had created issues with respect to creating a quorum for appellate body members. The new U.S. administration under President Biden has displayed a willingness to work with allies, as the minister stated, and with respect to the WTO, has been supportive of filling the Director General position that had been vacant. And so we see that as a good sign that the new administration is willing to engage on WTO issues. I just should state that both Democratic and Republican administrations have raised concerns about the appellate body and dispute settlement process at the WTO, but we take the sign that the U.S. Has engaged on the filling of the Director General position as a positive sign that they'll be willing to engage with partners at the WTO and to resolve the quorum issue at the appellate body. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe this would be also appropriately guided to you as our North American trade policy. In our negotiations with the United States, you know, they make claims about our stumpage rates being below market value, and this is the justification for their countervailing duties and tariffs. But I'm just wondering, you know, we have carbon taxes in Canada. We're talking about a clean fuel standard. I mean, it's quite clear that our government has more taxes on industry, and particularly I was speaking to a sawmill owner in my riding, and they have kilns which they use to dry the lumber. You know, their trucks are burning a lot of diesel and gas to move these products. So, I mean, the cost of the carbon tax and the soon-to-be announced clean fuel standard will represent yet another increase in the cost of their inputs. Is this being used at the trade negotiation level to show the Americans that, hey, look, our cost of doing business is higher because of taxes? Is this at all bearing on the negotiations?
Thank you very much, Honourable Member, for the question. As you noted, the U.S. takes issue with the difference in our stumpage rates because our system is based on a public land ownership system versus the United States, which is based on a private land ownership question. But in our minds, and I think it's a state of fact, that our market rates are fair. With respect to environmental issues, the Biden administration has shown a very keen interest in addressing issues like climate change, and environmental issues in general. And so I think that the Canadian green forestry practices are a selling point for the forest industry. I can speak personally. I was the head of the Canadian Trade Office in Japan, and I can say that the Canadian green forestry practices were a huge selling point in Japan when people were looking to purchase lumber, and this differentiated us from our competitors. And so I think our positive environmental practices will hopefully be seen as another positive with the Biden administration in negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't want to get into a political debate on this one because I know as you're a bureaucrat, but a bit of an observation is when we're dealing with, our trading partners to the south, they might appreciate that we're putting more taxes and being more green in our industry, but whether or not that's reciprocated by them raising similar taxes so that our industries can be on a competitive playing field with each other is a whole another matter. One of the other concerns that have been raised, and maybe you're not the appropriate person, but I mean, we have sky high lumber rates right now in Canada. And, I know the industry is happy about this, but they're concerned about the future. What actions are we planning in the future to ensure that this industry can remain sustainable?
I'm not sure that I'm best placed to answer that, honorable member. Maybe I'll ask Colin Bird, who is Colin Barker, who is the director for the Softwood Lumber Division. Maybe he can speak to that.
Hello, thank you. Yes, I'm Colin Barker. I'm the director of the Softwood Lumber Division here at Global Affairs Canada. So certainly the high lumber prices at the moment are insulating companies against the impact of the duties. So certainly that is helping companies weather the current situation. Obviously, there are negative impacts on consumers and the home building sector as a result of those high prices. So it's not sustainable, certainly in the long term, and eventually prices will come back down as supply is increased. And certainly, the lower the price goes, then the more impact the duties have. Certainly over the past few years, the price has been at a favorable level, but we can't assume that will always be the case. So certainly it will be as the minister pointed out, it will be our priority now that a new administration is taking shape to investigate ways that we can perhaps arrive at a new negotiated agreement to this dispute. And certainly our efforts on the litigation side will also help to increase the pressure on the U.S. to come to the table, as will our cooperation with groups in the U.S. like the Home Builders Association. Their press release was pointed out earlier in the discussion. They're an important advocacy ally in the U.S. to convince the administration and Congress that it's time to come back to the table on this issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. I gave the witness a bit of extra time there. I hope you don't mind. Mr. Sidhu, I think you are next, I believe.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the department for being here with us today. Look, we all understand the importance of the forestry sector. It supports over 200,000 jobs across Canada. 1% of our GDP. I'm happy to hear that most of the sawmills, which closed during the early days of the pandemic, are now back up and running, and to see communities back to support their mills and the industry in general. I'd like to hear from the department, see, how are they supporting the forestry sector in diversification? What are their thoughts on that?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Supporting the forestry sector is a key priority of the department, and we look at it in probably three ways. And I'll turn to my colleague Rosalind Kwan, who works directly in the Trade Commission Service, to provide more detail. But we look at it in least three ways. One is we look to diversify markets, look for new markets internationally for Canadian forest products. Number two, we look to promote new innovative products, and the minister made reference to high-rise buildings. There's the 14-story Brock Commons wood structure in University of British Columbia, which we promote very much as new technology that is safe and green. And the third is we try to attract investment from foreign investors into the Canadian forestry sector. So those are kind of our three priorities in promoting diversification. But maybe I'll turn to Rosalind to provide some more detail.
Thank you. And thank you, Honourable Member, for your question. And I'm Rosalind Kwan, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am the Director General for Trade Sectors at Global Affairs Canada, and I myself am a Trade Commissioner. and part of the Trade Commissioner's Service. So just a quick thank you to those who have expressed your appreciation for our service and for and in your work with us and in the work of your companies with us. We're always very happy and committed to supporting Canadian companies in the forestry sector. As my colleague Arun Alexander mentioned, trade diversification is our priority, and as very well elaborated by Minister Ng, we look at trade diversification in a number of ways, and she mentioned the markets, whether it's in Europe or in Asia or elsewhere. We also work with our Canadian companies to look at the wonderful and new innovations that they have and that they're working on to be able to help them take advantage of those opportunities in the marketplace globally. And I should also mention that as part of the Trade Commissioner Service, offices across Canada, as well as over 160 missions around the world. And our regional offices across Canada work with companies in their regions to be able to help support their business. And so in the forestry sector, of course, we have people, our trade commissioners, who work very closely with those you might know in the sector from your jurisdiction or areas or constituencies. And so that's on more general on trade diversification in terms of markets. I also wanted to touch a little bit on looking at new and innovative products using the new and Canada's innovation capacity through a forestry sector, which has been impressive, as Minister mentioned, not only through the pandemic, but also in terms of looking at polymers and bio-based composites, biofuels, to be able to take advantage of the growing opportunities around the world. And part of that is our job to help support them to identify those opportunities and to be able to tap into those opportunities so they themselves can get into the supply chains of opportunities around the world. And through that, the minister also talked about some of the work that we do, whether it's virtual trade missions, whether it's working directly with companies, whether it's through the Can Export program, through a number of tools that we have to be able to help further the objectives and support the important companies in this sector across Canada. And of course, we continue to place this as a priority, as it was clearly stated, in terms of how we help to support trade diversification for the forestry sector regarding Canadian companies.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair. How much time do I have left?
You've got about 15 seconds, so you're
okay. Well, no, thank you. Thank you for that that insightful answer there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We are on now to Mr. Simard for 2.5 minutes.
Oui, merci.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Quickly, in 2.5 minutes. Earlier, I raised with the Minister the issue that some businesses, some forestry people have in receiving funding from DEC Canada. So as soon as they are doing primary wood processing, they can receive funding, because that would not be in accordance with this agreement. So it makes it very difficult for people to receive funding. Could you provide some light on that?
Chair, the government has made available numerous funding programs, both in response to the tariffs themselves, the Softwood Lumber Action Plan, or SLAP as we call it, as well as in response to the COVID pandemic crisis. In devising these programs, we have to be very careful to ensure that they are consistent.
No, I don't have much time. I just want to know if, yes or no, it's impossible for forestry industries that are doing primary transformation to receive financial support from Canada.
The very short answer then, Honourable Member, is no, it is not impossible. Such industries can receive financial support from Canada as long as the financial support that they receive is consistent with our international trade obligations. So just to be clear, yes, they can receive support from Canada.
Okay, what I was told was that the majority of the applications are rejected by Global Affairs Canada. Maybe we can look into the answer you're giving me. And another bone of contention is that Global Affairs Canada, once there is a primary wood processing, even if the business is doing that processing at a second, third level, once the first processing is being done, Global Affairs would not allow Canada to support these businesses at the primary level. Is that statement accurate?
Well, thank you for your question, Honourable Member. I don't know the specifics of the example that you're giving, so what I can say is that as long as our funding mechanisms are consistent with our international trade obligations, then Canada is able to and will provide funding to the softwood lumber sector. It's difficult for me to speak to specific examples without knowing the background.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. Mr. Cannings, over to you, sir.
Well, thank you. I guess my main question I want answered is this business of, Catherine Tai, who's going to be the new trade representative from the States, said these issues seem to go back to the beginning of time. And I'm just wondering, are there any examples out there in international trade agreements, whether they're with Canada or not, that offer a way for us to stop this just treadmill of constant softwood lumber disagreements, whether there's a way to really put in language that says what Canada does, the stumpage system we use, the public land ownership we have, that's okay. And some language that says the United States cannot bring these actions forward if that system remains the same. We need something to stop this whole cycle of disputes. I don't know who may want to try to answer that.
Well, thank you, Honourable Member. Perhaps I will begin, and then I may turn to my colleagues to add to my response. I understand your point that it seems like there's been an interminable cycle of lumber disputes with the United States. I think Lumber 1 goes back to the early 80s, and we're in the 5th iteration, and I've been involved, and I know Mike Owen has been involved at least since early days of Lumber 4. And so it is a difficult issue. What I can say is that in negotiations, and Canada is always open and willing to enter into discussions and negotiations with the United States for an agreement that is fair to our industry and which will bring benefits to our industry, our workers, and our communities. And so in negotiating such an agreement, we would put everything on the table, including the possibility of recognizing Canada's stumpage system, which is, like you said, based on public lands, as a key priority. We would like to end these interminable softwood lumber disputes as well. And so anything that we can do to resolve this issue on a longer term basis is a key priority for the government. Maybe I'll ask my colleagues. Mike Owen, would you like to say anything as the lead litigator?
Sure. Thank you, Arun. I think it's a great question. And, it has been something that the department has thought about over numerous cycles of softwood lumber since I've at least been involved in the file since 2001. I can tell you it's very, very difficult. What we're dealing here with are U.S. domestic proceedings, the countervailing duty investigations, the anti-dumping investigations that any U.S. industry has a right under U.S. law to bring. I think one of the impediments that we face in sort of coming to a final conclusion is the U.S. coalition, the U.S. lumber industry has a right to sue under U.S. law. And in order to even reach a softwood lumber agreement like the one we had the last time, they have to suspend that right or at least come to the table and indicate perhaps that there's not going to be no injury or that they're not going to move forward with duties. So that's always been one particular difficulty in trying to reach a final solution where we wouldn't have to go back to Lumber 6 or Lumber 7. I don't even like thinking of that. But it's one of the key problems that I think is to answer your question.
Thank you. I am going to have to stop you there. Mr. McLean, I believe you're next for 5 minutes. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would go back to questioning Mr. Alexander here. Mr. Alexander, you raised a point here about the Japanese, you say, gave us a lot of credit for the fact that our lumber was green types of lumber. And let me say, I don't think they're paying 1 cent more per million board feet because we're green. So, and if you've got different information, we're being paid more or we're doing more business because of our green, then could you please send that to me? But to the date, I haven't seen that. And I've also noticed that since 2008, the industry has been stagnant. That is, there is no more money being earned in the industry. So therefore, all the extra money we seem to be spending in trade agreements, everything else associated with the industry, we're getting less and less return for it. And perhaps you could comment on that, please.
Well, thank you very much for that question, honorable member. I can tell you in my discussions when I was in Japan with Japanese lumber purchasers, one of the key issues that they would raise in discussions with me was the green aspects of our Canadian forestry practices. It was something that they saw as very positive. If you know Japan, you know that they're very concerned about the environment and nature, and so they would make a point of pointing out to me that Canada's green practices were a very positive aspect of our lumber industry and the decisions that they made with respect to sourcing lumber. And I think did I miss a part of your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we talked about that. I asked you about that, if we're actually making any more money or if in fact we are just, it is virtue signaling without any tangible results and we're spending more money at it and getting no results for it.
Are you speaking, sorry, just to be clear, about the green practices or free trade agreements in general?
Speaking about what you raised as far as Japan patting us on the head because we're more green than they are.
I would say that I didn't say that we were more green than they are, but they took into account our green forestry practices as making purchasing decisions. And so I don't have statistics on whether they paid more for it, but I can tell you that in discussions with major forestry companies in Japan, that this was an issue that they just spoke very positively about.
Okay, and yet you've got the minister looking at border carbon adjustments on certain countries in the world right now, including India, China, Australia, Mexico, and Japan. So somehow their virtue is paying us more in some respects, and I'm a little lost on this disconnect here.
I'm sorry if I'm not making myself clear, but I think one of the virtues or one of the considerations that Japanese lumber purchasers take into account is Canada's green forestry practices in making their decisions. It's a positive aspect.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to something the minister raised, and maybe one of the officials can talk about it. We are currently at a state in the industry where we are getting top dollar for the product, and yet we haven't got all of the mills that were closed pre-COVID back open yet. It shouldn't be just those mills that are reopened. It should be all the mills that have closed down because of this border tariff situation we have with the United States. Why hasn't that happened? And where are the jobs flowing to at this point in time? And can you please tell us why? Because we are at a record production and a record financing in this industry.
Arun, maybe I can jump
in.
Please. It's Colin Barker again, Softwood Lumber Division. So I think it's fair to say that all of the mills that closed due to the initial shutdowns because of the COVID-19 pandemic back in April and May have reopened. So employment is back up to pre-pandemic levels. There were shutdowns and curtailments at different mills in British Columbia. Those were largely due to fiber supply issues. So it's an adjustment the industry is making to the supply of their input in British Columbia. It's unrelated both to the COVID-19 pandemic or to the duties. So those curtailments and shutdowns and shifts in production have not been reversed because those decisions were taken with regard to the very specific supply issue in British Columbia.
Well, thank you. I have another question here as far as the actual mill closures pre-COVID. Can you tell us how many jobs were lost in Canada and if there were a correlating number of jobs gained in the United States because of those closures?
So it's Colin Barker again. I don't have in front of me statistics related to the job losses, but I do understand there were job losses primarily in British Columbia due to those fiber supply issues. So the jobs were not replaced with jobs in the United States per se, because not all of those mills would have opened operations in the US to compensate. So sometimes production was increased at other mills that had better access to fiber. So that internal adjustment within BC is very much a local BC market condition that is, as I say, playing out.
Thank you, Mr. Barker, and thank you, Mr. McLean.
Thank you.
Mr. Weiler, you're up again, sir, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to get back to a question that my honorable colleague brought up earlier, which I think is a very salient point for our discussion today. And that's this is likely a question both for Mr. Alexander and Ms. Landry, and that's in regards to having effective environmental regulations and policies. As the US and also the EU have mused or are starting to pursue bringing in carbon border adjustments, does your department, both from the actual the private sector buyer point of view for our natural resource products such as forestry, but also in terms of trade policy, see that as a risk if Canada does not have effective measures in place for climate action? Do they see that as a risk that may impede market access into those countries, or perhaps lead to a risk that those countries might put a tariff on those goods entering those countries?
Thank you very much. It's a very, very good question. I understand that the Europeans and the United States are both considering carbon border adjustment measures. The level of policy development in each is probably in the earlier stages. Canada also is taking very strong measures with respect to carbon and climate change. And so I think we have an opportunity to work together with the United States, the European Union, and other allies to address the challenges of climate change and carbon border adjustment measures multilaterally. And so I think Canada should seize this opportunity and work with our allies to make sure we develop a system that recognizes the strong green practices of the Canadian economy, Canadian companies, and Canadian provinces and the federal government. I'll just ask if any of my colleagues would like to add anything to that. I think I'd be happy to answer any more questions you have.
Great.
Sounds like the answer was no.
Thanks for that, Mr. Alexander. Maybe this next question's for Mr. Owen. We've talked about it already, but the World Trade Organization ruled that U.S. tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber exports were unjustified. The U.S. is now appealing this decision to the U.S. appellate body, but there isn't quorum right now because the U.S. has been blocking the mechanism to appoint new judges. But without the appointment of new judges to this appellate body, what recourse does Canada have before the World Trade Organization?
That's an excellent question. Thank you. I didn't introduce myself the last time. I'm Mike Owen. I'm the director of the Softwood Lumber Litigation Division in the Trade Law Bureau at Global Affairs. That's not to be confused with Mr. Barker's Softwood Lumber Division. It's a little bit of a close name. Thank you for the question. I think, in terms of moving the WTO litigation forward, all WTO litigation, regardless of whether it's been brought by Canada against the United States or if it involves other countries right now, is currently awaiting sort of a multilateral discussion about the future of the appellate body and resolution of that with the new U.S. administration. So I think there isn't really a way of moving things forward without first getting the appellate body back up and running. I will say, though, importantly, that the WTO obligations.
Pardon, Monsieur le Président, on n'a plus d'interprétation. Je sais pas si le témoin peut.
Unfortunately, we lost translation. The witness is speaking too far from the microphone. The interpreters are having a hard time.
Yeah, if you can adjust your mic boom and maybe just speak a little bit louder, Mr. Owen, that might solve the problem.
Certainly, I am very sorry. One important thing to bear in mind, though, with respect to the litigation is that the World Trade Organization obligations under the WTO Subsidies and Countervailing Measures Agreement that the US was found to have violated are very similar in some respects to the obligations in US law. And the United States implemented those obligations into US law when it adopted the WTO agreements. So the decision at the WTO is, I think, persuasive, is analogous, and is on point, and it's something that we can bring before the NAFTA and CUSMA panels to argue that the decision is also equally inconsistent with United States law. There are different standard of reviews in the two systems, but there is a lot of parallel between the legal obligations, and yeah, I think that's probably.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. And I think with this in mind, some of the challenges with this. I was wondering if one of the witnesses could speak to some of the work that we're undergoing right now to reform the World Trade Organization.
Certainly, honourable member. Thank you for the question. Canada is very much involved in looking at the World Trade Organization and looking at aspects of reform. As you may know, Minister Ang leads the Ottawa Group, which is a group of a subgroup of members of the WTO that are looking at ways to reform the organization. It was established in, I think it was 1995, and so it has been over 25 years since it was established, and so it's a good opportunity to look at the structure, the rules, and the way the organization operates. And I'm very proud to say that Canada is playing a leading role through the Ottawa Group on ensuring that that the reforms of the WTO are effective and implemented.
Great. All right, thank you, Mr. Weiler. Now, members, we have 9 minutes left in this meeting. We're starting a 6-minute round. If we stick to the schedule, we'll only get 2 more people in. I would be willing to allow time for 4 people to ask questions, but that would mean sharing the time equally and reducing the question time to 3 or 4 minutes each. Does anybody object to that? Okay, good. All right, so we have Mr. Patzer, Mr. Lefebvre, Mr. Simard, and Mr. Cannings. I'll give you 3 minutes each. So starting with Mr. Patzer.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'm actually going to move my motion that pursuant to Standing Order 108-1A, the committee requests the Minister of Natural Resources to appear no later than Friday, March 26, 2021 for consideration and reporting on the supplementary estimate C referred to the same committee for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2021.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Patzer. And I can tell you that I've already extended an invitation to him, and my understanding is that he's available on March 22nd to attend the committee. So I mean, we can vote on the motion if you want, or we can just carry on.
Well, I mean, I would.
Or put it this way: if you want, we can just go straight to a vote and show a thumbs and just move on. So we're not.
Why don't we just go to a quick vote, just to get it on the record? I would greatly appreciate that.
Okay. I see all thumbs up. It's unanimous. Motion carried, Madam Clerk. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Patzer. Okay, carry on.
Okay, thank you very much. So to Mr. Owen or to Mr. Barker, what are our realistic prospects for diversifying export markets for softwood?
Sorry, I was looking for my mute button there. My apologies. I'll try to answer quickly given the time constraint. Obviously, as has been discussed at length today, we're working very hard to help the industry find new markets for their products. Of course, the United States will always remain the chief market for our products. That is, a basis of geography and also the cost of transporting lumber over large distances, obviously. But there are markets around the world for specialty products, and that's where our focus is and will continue to be, to help the industry develop innovative products that can find markets around the world where proximity is not as essential. So that's where the work is focused, and maybe I'll stop there in the interest of time.
Okay, well, thank you for the quick answer. And then just a quick follow-up. Will searching for other buyers further strain our relationship with the U.S., do you think?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, our view is obviously the United States depends on our high quality wood products for their home construction industry. And so we see their duties as self-defeating ultimately. And I think we're seeing that play out now with high prices, which are not all due to duties, certainly, but the duties are contributing partially to those high prices. So our view is always that they need our high quality products. But certainly it's good for the industry to have multiple outlets for their products, depending on market forces and demand, which does fluctuate around the world for different reasons.
Okay, thank you. And then just really quickly, I've seen expert speculation following the DSB's meeting this past Monday that the impasse at the WTO is likely to continue through 2021. Do you think that this is a good guess, or do you believe it is realistic to resolve this problem any sooner than the end of this year?
Maybe I'll answer that question. I think it's very difficult to speculate. I think all members are working towards resolving the appellate body quorum dispute. We will work as hard as we can to make sure that the issues that have been raised by some members are addressed. And our goal would be to have a functioning appellate body back in place as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Patzer. Mr. Lefebvre, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Listen, thank you everyone for being here. This has been very informative, and it's really great to have obviously the expertise that you're bringing to the table for as we conclude the study. Mr. Owen, you said that you've been involved certainly with this file since 2001. That's the year that I graduated from law school, and I'm now 47 years old. So this is pretty much it's been a long haul for you to work on a file that keeps referring. It's almost like a job for life, pretty much. I'm sure you're trying it not to be, but that's kind of the reality. And what I'm getting at is that, and what the context that you provided us, I think was very important. That the U.S., the system that they've made in the U.S., the laws that they've passed, and the structure that they have has made it that the industry can sue anytime they want and stop the process, and which makes it's extremely difficult for us as Canada, no matter what the political party, to really put a structure in place that we don't need to deal with this, and that you can move on to another file, right? And so basically, maybe for the purposes of this study, where do you think that it ends, and does it? And if it does it, like, also, what are our next? How do you see this unfold in the next 5 to 10 years?
Maybe I'll jump in. Sorry, Mike, given that it's a bit more of a negotiations question.
Okay.
In the interest of time. Sure. As Mike alluded to, I mean, Canada is very keen to find a permanent solution if one can be found.
Yeah.
And the U.S. has even indicated at times what sorts of things could be done to help arrive at that, and that sort of reforms within our system to include like auctions, which both British Columbia and Quebec have adopted. Unfortunately, when we make those changes, the U.S. is not always quick to follow through on their commitments they indicated previously about what reforms might be worthwhile. And as my colleague pointed out, the industry ultimately holds the whip hand in that under US law, they have the right to bring claims unless they give up that right unilaterally.
And they will never do so. And that's kind of the reality. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, certainly we heard from questions from both parties, and what I'm trying to get at is the partisanship. I think all members of Parliament here are all supportive of the work that you're doing. And again, I should say certainly from my standpoint, the amazing and the hard work and the position that you're in to negotiate with the other side, no matter who it is in power in Canada, we are all supportive of having certainly a softwood lumber deal with the U.S. certainly, but what you've expressed to us, the importance of the efforts and the unreciprocity, certainly that the other side is not as keen as we are, and there could, because of the factions in the U.S. side that are certainly making sure that they benefit from this uncertainty. So I just want to make sure that we get that on the record, and I really appreciate that, because that's key, I think, for the study, because as we are all concerned about certainly the soft trade, the lumber dispute, the reality is that it's extremely challenging, and no matter, regardless of political parties involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lefebvre. Thank you for stopping on time. Mr. Simard, you have 3 minutes, sir, and then Mr. Cannings for 3 minutes.
Yes, quickly. I don't know if my question would be for Mr. Markham or when we will see. We know in 2006 there was $1 billion that was left on the table for talking to several businesses in the forestry sector. There are major players. They called it the strategy of tiring people out. The United States hopes that the forest sector would get tired and accept a discount solution. Are there some provisions within the WTO that can protect us against this kind of low rate arrangements, or is it only possible through a negotiated process? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honourable Member. Maybe I'll begin. It was, at the previous round, you're correct that the U.S. Returned $4 billion worth of duties, but $1 billion was retained under the previous agreement. In the current round, the U.S. is once again collecting duties, and it would be our aim in a negotiated agreement to get all the duties back for Canadian companies. It would, of course, be part of the negotiations. But with respect to WTO aspects, maybe I'll turn it over to Mike Owen, our litigator.
So I'm sorry, could you, I had a bit of an interruption in the feed, and I know you asked about WTO aspects, but could you just repeat that question so that I'm clear on it? Je suis désolé.
I'm sorry. Yes, quickly. I was wondering if there are mechanisms within the WTO that would oblige the United States to refund in entirety the countervailing duties that were unjustly taken. If we refer to the 2006 agreement, that's $1 billion that was held back by the United States. Is it just the effect of the negotiating process, or can we take legal measures to get back that money?
So thank you for the question. I understand now. For that, in terms of answering that question, I think the key thing to know is that yes, that relief is available. It was and that's one of the reasons why the government made sure that we could get that relief under the NAFTA system and preserve that dispute settlement system under the Canada-US-Mexico agreement. So that relief and that refund of duties, if we were to win everything, is available under that system, and it's binding under US law because those panels stand in the place of US courts. WTO relief is prospective, and so while we could ultimately prevail at the WTO if the appellate body mechanism issue was resolved, that relief would be sort of going forward as of the date of that victory.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Thank you, Mr. Smart. Mr. Cannings, you are last up today.
Well, thank you. And when I talk to forest companies in my riding and around the region, and I'm sure Mr. Zimmer hears this as well, one of their main concerns in British Columbia is stumpage rates and how stumpage rates are too high or they're out of sync with the prices that are being offered at the present time. And of course, when I talk to the provincial government, they say they're wary about changing that system because of the softwood lumber issue with the United States. And I'm just wondering if someone here can answer, how sensitive are those, if provinces started changing the way they charge stumpage rates, how sensitive would that be in terms of raising the specter of new tariffs, new actions on the part of the United States? What is that risk?
Thank you for that question, Honourable Member. Maybe I'll ask Colin Barker to respond to that.
Hi, I was going to pass it to Mike, but I'll try quickly. So as I alluded to earlier, British Columbia adopted an auction system, which was partially adopted in an effort to make reforms that were hoped that would reduce the potency of U.S. arguments that the BC system was providing a subsidy. I think and that maybe I'll answer for Mike here. I mean, Mike and his team did an excellent job at the WTO to show that the BC system does offer fair prices when compared to a reasonable benchmark, a reasonably comparable benchmark. And so that is why we were ultimately largely successful both at the WTO and using those same arguments as part of the annual review process to have the duties cut by more than half in that first annual review. So certainly it's very important that the provinces are cognizant of this issue when formulating their forestry practices. Obviously, they still have broad leeway in how they do that, and certainly we work with them to make sure that we understand it fully so that we can bring the best arguments forward in our dispute settlement. And as I said, I think Mike and his team had some great success both at the WTO and with respect to the current duties.
Well, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cannings. All right, well, thank you, everybody. For our witnesses, thank you very much. It's a complicated and critical topic, and thank you for your insight. It provided us with greater understanding. I know, speaking for myself, it certainly did, and I'm sure I speak for everybody when I say that. So we're grateful for your time on a Friday afternoon, especially. So, and thanks to the members. Enjoy the non-sitting week. I know everybody will be busy, and we'll see you when we get back. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Chair.